Hello everyone, today Scorcher Toys at anymoon.com is taking a closer look at Bandai's armored parts for the DX VF-31S toy. Arid sports the full armor in the Macross Delta movie Passionate Valkyr. These parts started shipping in August 2019 as a Tamashii Web exclusive for 17,280 yen inclusive of tax. So, if you want them, you're going to have to hit up some kind of Japanese proxy service or scour the secondary market. If you just like toys and are in the market for Transformers, Mezco, or Robotech merch, click my link below to shop at Big Bad Toy Store and help this channel in the process. Tamashii Web exclusives come in a brown shipper box. Inside that brown shipper box, you'll generally find a fairly plain retail style box, but on this release, Bandai gave the armored parts the full retail treatment. The box has lots of color and pairs nicely with the VF-31 Toys box, which, of course, is sold separately. As you can see, the armored parts come in a box that is actually bigger than the Toys box. Once you open that box, you won't get the presentation frills you find with the DX VF-31 toys. Just two plastic clamshells brimming with armored parts. I'll go over all the armored parts as we discuss installation. The first tray has all the armored parts as well as two mission pack braces, one for Gerwalk and one for Batroid, and two kneecap spacers, which I'll discuss later. In the second tray, you'll find a display stand consisting of a base, an arm, a Batroid mode arm support, a fighter mode arm support, 3 display stand adapters, one for each mode, 3 support arms, 3 claw attachments for the support arms, and 3 claws for the support arms. Behind all of that, you'll also find color instructions, and you can find a full scan up on anymoon.com. These parts come with a display stand. The display stand's base will look immediately familiar to you because you already own it. It came with whatever VF-31 toy you're going to attach these parts to. The arm, on the other hand, is a little different. You can see it is a much beefier arm than the one that comes with the VF-31 toy. It has room for shelves that go into the back. Those shelves have slots or peg holes for the supports, and those supports will either hold up the arms of the toy or the backpack. We also get this piece here, which goes right on front and will stop the toy with all that weight from going back and forth in either direction. You also get a display stand adapter for Batroid mode, which is exactly the same as the display stand adapter you had with the toy. So no differences there. Again, a little bit gratuitous to even include it. You'll need it more for the other modes. So there you go. That is what the display stand looks like together. You're ready to pop on a DX VF-31 toy and apply those parts. When you're ready to begin installing the armored parts, before you go ahead and put the toy on the display stand and dress it up like a doll, you want to install this clip here. And I absolutely hate this clip. It's not integral. It's not going to stay on the toy through transformation. And it just seems like a great way to scrape up some of this nice paint in this area. But what you want to do is take it and thread it between the prongs there and bring it forward. And then you need to get it in far enough that it's going to actually clip into position. So it's easier to be able to look at it from below to see if you're accomplishing that. And it is not at all easy. You can see if it flows backwards, it's not in position. So there it goes. Now it's had to press down a little bit and push it forward. And now it's locked into position. And now I want to take my toy, bring that backpack down, lock that entire backpack into position. And then I'm going to take my toy and I'm going to go ahead and throw it on my display stand, which you should already be familiar with how to do that. And we can move on to putting on the rest of the parts. Now that we have our mission pack support in place, we can go ahead and remove that mission pack by just lifting up on it. That reveals the peg that was holding it. And then we're going to take our mission pack from the tray. It will look something like this. And we're going to go ahead and push the guns all the way forward. Now it could be a little stiff, so there it goes. Once they are all the way forward, do note you can individually articulate these guns. Nice detail work on them. They look attractive enough. They also have opening front cannon portals. They're a little weird in their implementation. So you want to slide that forward and then you're going to be able to open it up and really just enough to expose the barrel within. Do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to go ahead, let's get that open. And we're just gonna plug that hole onto the mission pack peg. And since we've got our support in place, we really don't have to worry about this falling back too far. And we can just lean it forward. It should hold its position pretty well. Next up comes the mighty leg armors. And we're gonna start with this piece here that goes on the back. You wanna take this little flap and bring it outward. And then we're gonna turn the toy around. There's a little notch right there. There's a little peg on either side here. And we're just gonna line those up and press forward and it will lock into place. Now, if you don't pull this piece up, you're gonna hit that ankle guard. Next, we are going to stay on the outside and grab this piece here. You can see there are tabs top and bottom that are going to slot into the leg. You can see the hole there. So you're gonna try to line those up and apply a little pressure, and that will lock right into place also. And then we are going to take our inside cover, which looks like this, and we are going to also tab it into position. So let's get our leg. Oops. Don't worry, it's all gonna lock together just super nice and tight when we get there. So get that into position, get our cover here, plug that in, and you'll know you've got everything in the right spot when these pieces come together to look like a nice peg, because you're gonna take this spot right here, flip it around, line it up, press that in, locking everything together, and then you have this inside piece with the two little pegs there that go right into there. And we're just gonna apply a little bit of pressure and we will be done with the legs. Now there are obviously lots and lots of missile bays. You also have this little flopping area in the front for your foot articulation. The missile bays, the best way to open them, since they fit so flush, is to fit a little fingernail in at the hinge and pull the hinge forward. And then you can flip the bay open like so. And this is even more true on these ones on the side here, on the inside. A little tougher to get at unless you pull them up at the hinge and then swing them open like so. Now we're gonna work our way up the leg and we're gonna go with the thigh piece next. You can see a little notch, that's towards the bottom. On the inside, little tabs. And this piece moves up and down for either transformation or articulation purposes. You wanna line up those little pegs with the little slots that are in the thigh. And we should just be able to apply a little pressure and have it lock into place. Then there's this cover that goes on top, has little grabbers on the side that go into those slots on the side of the leg. Here we go. You can see right in there. So we line that up and let's see, there it goes. Clips right into place again, nice and solid, nothing wrong there. And then there are two little slots that are potentially hard to see in this crotch area. This armor here just goes right into those slots. And now you have your hips, thighs, and crotch all armored. Now it's time to install the shoulder armors, which is probably my least favorite aspect of installation. You gotta take the canard and pop it off. Then you gotta take your armor piece, and we're gonna pop that off also. This little piece on the interior at least. Then we're gonna take the canard, we're gonna put it inside that armor piece and put this back on. And then we want to make sure our hinge is behind that plastic piece coming out there. And then line it all back up and put it back on the toy. And hopefully it goes in nice and firm for you. There it goes. And once it's on, you just fold that over like so. Now grab your giant gun. We're going to flop open the arm covers and bring this pivot around to put it in the Batroid position. Grab your toy, swing the gun forward, click that back into place, and then this is just going to connect via the hard point there. And just line those up and then apply some pressure. There it goes. Bring the cover over, and you can see this flap is for your elbow articulation. Now we're going to install the gigantic wing booster accessory, and to do that we're going to lift up on the back here to get this piece up, and that then allows you to pull this piece down. It's got a little peg on the side there, so that can come down. There is also a peg right here, which is going to fit right at the front of the vertical stabilizer. So you can just line that up, and you have that little hook on the top. And you want to get this piece below your vertical stabilizer. You got to get everything lined up just right, and then you press in, and it should, with a little bit of luck, lock into position. There it goes. And then you press down to really lock everything in. It's going to look like that. This is kind of the position on the wing there. We're going to open up these pieces here, and you have attached your wing booster. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull my wing forward. You can hear this is a ratcheted joint. So we'll get that facing forward. And I did want to show you that you do have a whole lot of missiles in here. So all of these doors open up to reveal missiles. So that's nice. If we spin things around, we similarly have back missile bays as well. So that's nice. And then we have a little trickier to reach, missiles that come out. So there we have those ones, and the same thing on the bottom. So lots and lots and lots of missiles in these pods. We're going to finish up with the chest armor, which comes in two pieces that very easily peg together and then allow you to slide forward like so. We also have these missile bays, so we can, again, pull on the hinge. That's the easiest way to open any of these bays, and swing it open like so. So same thing on the other side. Get your finger in, get that hinge. So that's what the chest bays look like when they're opened up entirely. And then we do have missile bays that will be a little trickier to get to up on the top, at least for Batroid mode. So those missile bays as well. And the installation is going to seem familiar to you if you had a VF-25 with armored parts. You're just going to install by pressing forward and then push those pieces up and back. And there you go. Now you've got your chest armor on as well. All right, you'll have to do some fine tuning. I pushed the chest down, get that in position, and then I opened up all of the missile bays. And you can see it is a very impressive piece. Almost all of the hinges are the recessed type of hinge, with the exception of the missile pod bays up at the top here. These are more simple hinges. The rest of them you have to extend out and then unfold, and that conceals the hinge when not in use. The one thing I'm not super thrilled about is the weight on the wings and the hinge back here. We saw that cause a lot of breakage on VF-25 toys in the past, so I'm hoping they've figured that out, but it's still a little scary to me. You can see I'm using the support arms. They are holding up the weight of the gun in the back, so if that were to fall, it would obviously be pretty catastrophic, so we don't want that to happen. So a little extra support on top of that black clip they gave us. Then we have these holding up the arms in the front. I'm not using the fingers. I don't think you ever really need to use the fingers. They come on sprues. You'd have to detach them. You're just looking for a little shelf to hold things up, and this will do it without those fingers, so that's good enough. Obviously, an amazing display piece. It's kind of hard to even see the original toy underneath from the front. That's a whole lot of armor. That's a whole lot of missiles. But can you use the armor parts and not use the display stand? I know a lot of people want to know about that, and the answer is yes, you can, but it's going to require a lot more caution. We have added a lot of weight to this toy, and if one of the hip joints or knee joints bends, this toy will definitely topple backwards. That little black hook that we have on the back of the guns on top isn't really sufficient. If any momentum gets acquired in this piece falling backwards, it'll just knock that clip off and that'll all fall down. So you can do it. It makes a good looking display piece without that display stand. It makes a good looking display piece with that display stand. You just have to be a lot more cautious. You're going to pose the toy, you're going to put it down, you're going to handle it that way. You're not going to just start playing with it like this and see what poses come from it. All right, let's head on to Gerwalk mode. Transformation to Gerwalk mode will require you to remove a few armor parts and reinstall them when you've gotten into Gerwalk mode, which isn't exactly ideal. You will be removing the big triangle that was in the middle of the display stand so it doesn't interfere with the legs. Also spinning the toy around, we're going to get rid of that shelf on the back of the display stand for the same reason, so it's not bumping up against the legs. But that's going to make things a little more tricky with your arms. You might need to have more neutral positions with the arms. Or you can cheat a little bit and use the flap that covers the bicep and tuck it in underneath your shoulder armor to help get a little bit more support, like I'm doing over on this side. I did have a couple paint nits that I would point out. I thought it'd be nice if there was some paint in these missile bays. I also thought it'd be nice if there was some paint on these front guns in the barrels to make them look a little deeper. And similarly on the back of the toy, we have these big thruster nozzles, which are articulated, but they could use a little black paint in there to make them look like actual thrusters. As you get to Gerwalk mode, you're going to pull off the brace for the mission pack and replace it with a Gerwalk specific mode mission pack brace, but it doesn't do a very good job. Same as Batroid mode, although at least in Gerwalk mode, it's not as severe when you have issues with it. It's just going to make the guns fall backwards or forwards. Not too big a deal. In Batroid mode, there's a little more gravity going on and it falls with a little more authority. Doing Gerwalk mode without the display stand is more effort than it's worth, in my opinion. First, the toy is going to want to do the splits. So you're going to have it on a shelf that has a lot of friction so the feet don't slide so freely. And I just wanted to point out, look at what the weight is doing to the cockpit here. That gap that's always there on the toy, very much exacerbated by all of this armor and the heft on the back. Also, the intakes are really struggling to stay pegged in with all this armor on. So Gerwalk mode, not particularly enjoyable. Now, if I put on this front armor piece like it's supposed to be, it's going to push the arms down a little bit and out of the way, which can further exacerbate the hips trying to pop out. So it can do Gerwalk mode without the display stand, but it's just not very much fun to handle this way, and I wouldn't recommend it. Here we are in fighter mode, and I did have to take some parts off again and put them back on after transformation, so not a perfect transformation accessory. Once you're in fighter mode, everything stays on there nice and solid, which is good to see. The only thing that annoys me a little bit are these big guns that come up front. They get askew very easily, and they don't always look symmetrical with each other, so that can be a little bit irritating. We do have the articulated nozzles in the back that I showed you. These ones are also articulated up here. So you can have a little bit of fun handling this toy, not falling apart on you. High marks there. It does look just incredibly busy. You'll lose the plane within all that kibble, so I'm not a huge fan of that. Now, I do have, you can see it's also heavy. It's really heavy. All right, so there are these pegs up in the front. I've got them pulled down. Oh, there they are. And you insert the display stand adapter into those pegs, very similar to Gerwalk mode. It will then snug up in the back. We can take our display stand, and we've had to add that brace to the front because that's how heavy this thing is. And then we're just going to plop it down on top, and there you go. It's nice and steady on there. You can forget about it on the shelf. It's not going anywhere. Now, one thing I'll point out while we have it like this, I really don't like how the knees leave a little gap there. And I also don't like the landing gear, so let's take a look at those. Maybe you don't want to use the display stand. Maybe you want to show your plane taken off from a runway with all your other VF-31 toys. And to do that, you are going to want to use the landing gear. So you can whoosh this toy around, have some fun with it, but then flip it over, and it is a beast. And you'll find these landing gear, and here's a little extra piece that you get with the toy. And you're probably wondering, what is that? Why do I need it? It is just a spacer. So the landing gear has a little hinge here. There's a metal kneecap hinge, and this slides in behind it, and it will kind of lock into place there. And when it does, it acts as a spacer. So now the kneecap won't go any further than that, And as you can see, that leaves the tire above the crown of the kneecap. Still the weakness of the VF-31. I didn't like the underlying landing gear. I really don't like the landing gear on these armored parts, but they're integrated, so that's a thing. And they end up underneath the toy where almost no one will see them. So hopefully you can judge for yourself how much of a problem that's going to be for you. Given the choice between these armored parts and another VF-31 toy, I would take another VF-31 toy all day long. If a design is going to call for armored parts that allow transformation, then I would love for those armored parts to not be so clunky that you have to take things off and put them back on again and use braces to make everything work. Fighter mode was too busy for me. I much prefer the VF-25 with the armored parts in fighter mode. Gerwalk mode didn't handle well and I didn't enjoy it. Batroid mode wasn't bad, but in some ways it feels like putting your toy in a fat suit. At 436 grams, the armored parts weigh 14 grams more than the toy does, so handling issues were destined to happen. I felt like nearly every piece of this armor would have been better if it were smaller or tried a little harder to follow the natural curves of the underlying toy. The good news is that every aspect of this armor felt high quality, and while the braces were finicky, I didn't have any parts that wouldn't latch securely to the toy. That's not to say you won't knock some parts off while you're handling it, but when you do, you'll know why it happened. So, if you think these parts look dreamy, go ahead and grab a set. But I'd recommend you also use the thoroughly reinforced display stand to avoid handling issues. Subscribe and check out anymoon.com for the full article. Thanks for watching.